Hello, everybody. Welcome back to What the Flick. I'm Matt Atchity. This is Kim Horcher, who joins us to talk about Westworld, the latest episode called Kiksuya. And before we get into that, I want to tell you about the TYT app. You can go to tytnetwork.com/app and download the handy mobile app. You can get all of the great What the Flick content, as well as other content, other videos, and cool things from the rest of the network. The comfort of the Young Turks network in the convenience of your own phone, right? Download it. It's cool. I did. All right, so let's talk about Westworld.
Yes, I am furious because we could have been following Akachita this whole time instead of Dolores.
Okay, so this may be the best episode that we've gotten in the show so far.
I feel like they've been dying to tell this story.
This is
waiting and waiting.
So we get a lot of flashback. Akachita, played by Zahn McClarnon, who hasn't had a lot to do so far, right? We've seen him be one of the Ghost Nation warriors. We've seen him in...
I didn't recognize him as the salesman for the pitch with Logan.
So I didn't catch that till somebody said something. So he sits down with Maeve's daughter and starts telling his story. And we do, throughout parts of this episode, get other bits of what's going on, little bits of the plot keep moving along. But most of this episode is kind of a backstory to a character that we really haven't met, right? We've seen him.
I would love it if he could be a main character now.
And I hope so, because the story that he tells about his early time with his family and then the disappearance of his wife and what he learns and the journey he goes on is heartbreaking. And where you get this story against the context of everything that's happened in Westworld, I get that you don't get this story until where we're at, because we have to know this world. But it's kind of almost I don't want to call it a side story, like a side quest in a game, but it is this...
I think it's a parallel story.
It is kind of a parallel story, and because we've known the other things that's going on and the things he's had to fight against, his emotional devastation that happens in this really, really resonates well. I think this is really well written. It's very well shot. And again, McClarnon nails it acting-wise. You see him be menacing. You see him be stoic. You see him feel these just rush of emotions and despair and frustration. And he leaves it all, like he doesn't leave anything out. It's all right there. He leaves it all on the stage.
And we find out at the end, he was talking to Maeve the whole time.
Yeah.
So when he's speaking in Lakota, it's to Maeve, and when he's speaking in English, it's to the daughter, is how I took it.
Okay, I'll buy that. All right.
But what I found really interesting is when we went to the flashback with Ford, couldn't sleep, so he went out and did some late night scalping under the bright light. But it introduced this idea that, the scalping part of the maze, it wasn't Ford, it was Akachita. Right. And that he was able to kind of wake up on his own. He didn't, because Dolores' was very much orchestrated by Ford, but he was able to develop on his own. Over, 9 years of not getting killed? He's the anti-Teddy. He has lived probably longer than anyone else and fought the hardest and is probably the biggest badass. The only time he died was absolutely on purpose.
Right, we find a scene where they mentioned that he's never had the upgrade. He's an alpha unit, right? He's one of the original, had never had an upgrade because he's been in the park, and as one of them says, he's survived the meat grinder for 9 years. And that has clearly done something to that character, that program has sort of woken up. And there were hints that the system is starting to think for itself. And I think you see that manifest here in him. And yet, he really does, and probably rightly so, believe he's a real person, and those emotions are real, and the sense of loss.
Yes, I mean, when Ford is talking to him and he responds to analysis, absolutely. Right. But when he responds, it shows so much depth of critical thought, of having actual emotions. He is his own person. Ford is kind of in this nebulous area where at one point he's like, these things don't have the ability to have free will. And then he kind of evolves to, they can absolutely have free will. And I like that he's kind of stuck in the middle of that transgression. I think maybe he woke up Ford in a way.
Yeah, I get that sense, right? Because he talks to Ford. We finally get, we see what happened with Arnold, right?
The Deathbringer.
The Deathbringer.
And Arnold.
And Arnold. And so, we then see, oh, okay, well then Ford's setting up to do the same thing. And you almost wonder, is there some interesting parallel between what Arnold had with Dolores and what Ford may have been inspired to do by Akachita? I think that the other thing that I found really intriguing is this story of a character, a person, and his tribe of Native Americans that were living in this idyllic paradise. And then something, then people come in and it changes everything, and numbers of them.
A colonizer came in and ruined it.
And that they managed to tell a very similar kind of arc that people are disappearing and everything has all gone away and they can't get back to what they used to do, but maybe they can find some future. And I thought that was a really interesting choice to kind of do that story with this particular character.
He had so many good lines in this
Yeah.
I search for my love everywhere except beyond death.
Yeah.
And the thing about when he's touching Kohana's face, and he's like, my feelings were selfish because everybody had those feelings. I'm butchering it. It's a beautiful line, and I am making it not beautiful. But it's not. They feel this pain too, whether they know it or not.
Right. He said, that his feelings and what he was searching for was selfish because so many others had that same pain. And when he goes back and he brings the braid back
and the
to
mother cries.
Oh God, this was such a powerful episode. And it shows that when they, kind of do make some mistakes, it's frustrating because when you see something like this, it's, this is great TV, great storytelling. I do wonder a little bit, is the maze, are they getting a little bit too much? What is...
I don't quite understand what the maze is, considering now I know that Akachita has played such a huge part in it. I think he may have solved the maze on his own.
Is it a maze or is it a pictogram? See, I'm starting to think that less of a maze, it's more of
Not a literal maze.
Not a literal maze. I think it's more that there is a...
Well, it's definitely
it's a human image and there's something around it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's an image of somebody going through a portal that opens. Maybe. Because they keep talking about
I always read it
doors.
as a trigger, like how Peter Abernathy had the photo.
Right.
And it was just like, what? And it caused something to act go rogue in his head.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed this episode.
We should have asked Lewis about that. Who was here last week.
If only if he were here this week.
Right. Well, and then the clips of next week looks like we're getting a lot of
William.
A lot of William. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still a little William's still alive.
I like him less and less as we go on. He's a sociopath.
Yeah.
Logan was a jerk, but I really felt for him sitting there just losing his mind.
William's daughter had a great line when the ghost nation is saying, "What is he to you?" And she says, "His is a burden only I can take." Right?
I think we're going to see so much more from her.
I think so too.
All we know about her is she can speak Lakota. I think it's a ruse saying, I haven't been here since I was a child.
She's going to take him out of the park. That's going to be the worst thing she can do to him, is take him out of the park and he can't ever get back in. That's when she says, what I'm going to do to him is going to hurt him more. That's, I think, the worst possible thing she can do.
She wants to hurt him. Yeah. She wants to torture him. We're going to learn a lot more
All
from
right.
her.
Well, so thank you for joining us this week. We'll be back next week with the next episode, and we'll let you know what happens. This has been What the Flick. Thank you, Kim, for joining me.
Thank you.